The wife of the man dubbed the Springs Monster being granted bail of 2,000 rand in the Springs Magistrates Court where she appeared this morning. Let's go live on the line to our reporter Narissa Subramani for the latest there. Narissa, good morning to you. Just talk us through this woman's bail conditions.
Well, first of all, Joanne, the court had to decide how effective it would be to actually keep her in prison. Throughout her bail application, it was constantly reiterated by the state as well as witnesses that testified on her behalf that she's easily influenced. So the issue was whether or not she would influence any of the witnesses or intimidate them. And the court found that she is rather intimidated easily herself and therefore would not pose a threat to the witnesses. But the court has ruled that she is not allowed to have any contact with her children whatsoever, as they will be called as witnesses in the matter further on. And they couldn't rule out the possibility that as the mother, she wouldn't influence her children as well. And given the nature of the charges, which would also fall under child neglect as well as child abuse, she's not to have any contact with them. They are currently living with her sister, and her sister actually testified against her and in favor of the state. And during her testimony, the sister said she should have actually been arrested with her husband.
Let's just talk about how all of this began to unfold shortly after her husband's arrest, Narissa. Now, and as I recall, the state had initially intended to use her as one of its witnesses. We understand there were plans for her to act as a state witness in this case, to testify against her husband. What happened after that then resulted in her being charged?
Well, what had happened, Joanne, she was cooperating with police up until the point she got legal advice. And this was organized by one of her family members, or one of her husband's family members, rather. And that lawyer advised her not to comply with the police. She had been assisting them, well into a month of her husband's arrest, as well as going with the police to locate her son. But what the court also found today was that she was complicit with her husband, and the court ruled that her husband is the center of her world. So when he also went to the police to lay that trumped-up charge of missing persons when he himself had taken his child away to the Free State, the court ruled that she would essentially side with her husband, and the police had warned her that if she stopped complying with them, she would be arrested. And on the advice of a lawyer, she decided to stop complying with police.
Well, on the one hand, we're now getting this emerging version of her having been allegedly one of the children's abusers. On the other hand, we're given the impression that she's a very naive woman, that she's a weak woman who was greatly influenced by her aggressive husband. What sort of demeanor does she display in court?
Well, in court, she just stared blankly ahead. I mean, she didn't seem to, the expression was almost identical to her husband, if I could say. They both didn't offer much in terms of their body language. But at one point, her husband did break down and cry in court. I didn't see that from her, and I'd been sitting quite close to the dock. But I didn't see any behavior or any mention of her children, which is what I found actually quite strange. Throughout her testimony as well, everything was about her husband, Joanne, and she never once mentioned her children, except to say that when they were naughty, they'd get a hiding or a patslach. And what I understood from that is it almost appeared as though this was normal for her. First meeting her child's face was normal, and it was just considered a hiding. So that's the impression that I got from her.
Narissa Subramani, thank you so much for putting us in the picture. Just to remind you of that breaking news on the channel at this hour, the woman who is accused, along with her husband, of having abused their children in that Springs case has been granted bail of 2,000 rand. One of the main conditions, of course, is that she has no contact with the children who are staying with her.
No more. eNCA.com